Thank you, Madam Chair, and thanks to all the witnesses. This is sadly eye-opening, and especially the specter of ads targeting veterans with sort of flag-waving and patriotic themes and pictures perpetrated by scam artists just makes you sick to your stomach. I mean, I'm really discouraged at this. A couple of questions I was going to ask, and maybe I'll start with Ms. Wolf. So Andrew Gamber, he'd had a previous history before getting into this pension advance area. He had permanently lost his license as an insurance broker for grossly misleading his customers, according to committee briefing for this. So I guess he was in a field where there was a regulated environment, and he had engaged in activities that caused him to have his license pulled.
Right.
But I guess it's an indication that this kind of falls in the cracks, these pension advance, because he could go from a regulated area losing his license to setting something like this up without a license.
Right.
And is that just the quirks of all the different state laws and how this kind of a financial product is treated or maybe more often not treated under state law?
I would think so, but also Mr. Gamber seems to not really have a conscience and not really care what the laws are. His license was revoked in 2009 from the Arkansas Insurance Department. He was not regulated as a broker-dealer or an investment advisor under our act, but that's not to say that he wasn't selling securities. And so because it was a security under Arkansas law, we were able to take action. But I do want to point out, his license was revoked in 2009. He formed VFG in 2010. We took action against him in 2013 and 2014, and now he's formed a new company. And so he's definitely finding ways to skirt the law and finding those gray areas to exploit.
The GAO report is interesting because I think your study indicated with this bubble chart that the pension transactions are concentrated in these two large groups. One was Mr. Gamber, and we talked about him, and the second, future income payments group, is run by Stephen Kaine, whose earlier business endeavors prior to his involvement in the pension advance business led to him being convicted of federal criminal counterfeiting. So you've got the two main groups. One's being run by somebody who's lost his license because of misrepresentations to insurance clients, and the other is being run by somebody who had been convicted of federal criminal counterfeiting. And these are the two main groups that are doing this in the country right now.
Unfortunately, you have several unsavory characters operating in these business lines. But from a consumer perspective, again, it's very difficult to really know who you're dealing with because that's not revealed on the company website. So again, from a disclosure perspective, that's why we raise that as an issue in our report.
But again, from sort of a regulatory problem, if you've got, folks who've been in different sort of financial capacities, and one has been, suspended his licenses because of insurance challenges, and the other's been convicted of federal criminal counterfeiting, but nevertheless they can do this kind of a business, this suggests that there's sort of like a gap in which they're trying to fit their work in a less regulated area.
Yeah.
It's amazing that we would have less regulation for these kinds of pension transactions than we would for insurance. I mean, insurance is really important. Pensions are really important too, and that would be a gap is something that is notable. I want to take the Kreutz testimony, and I really appreciate you coming and sharing the experience, and I often find these hearings are really valuable because people are willing, thank God, to come share what's been a painful experience, and we can learn from it. Thank you for being willing to do that. But, they talked about, and I'm going to ask the other witnesses to kind of help me with this question. So they talked about the challenge they were dealing with. They had a challenge with medical bills for a daughter. They had a challenge with some housing expenses. These are the kinds of things that people run into every day. And one of you indicated, many are alternatives. There are many alternatives that are better than these kinds of loans. So be sort of generic advisors to seniors or veterans that are confronted with financial needs like they described. Got some real legitimate concerns. You see these kind of ads in a paper about maybe it'll, take advantage of this 800 number or get on this website to get help. What are the better alternatives? We're having hearings like this to, educate people. What are the better alternatives that folks should explore? And I just would love to have any of you talk about that. And again, we're not talking about a particular circumstance, but just generally. And Mrs. Kreutz, you want to jump in first, so please.
Yes. One of the things that happened with us in Structured, we took this money out to pay the IRS. And at the end, when the loan was concluded, we were given a list of who we could pay and who we couldn't. The IRS was not on it. So we paid those other ones, and we had to finally call the IRS, which worked with us on a payment plan for the $100,000.
And I wish to put on the record, the IRS was extraordinarily cooperative in coming up with a payment plan that was not a burden to us.
Senator, one of the things that's important, and we were talking before about why they were treated as loans or assignments, one of the pitches that these companies will make is that because it's not a loan, you don't have to worry about your credit score. Many of the people who are in dire financial straits are because their credit scores have deteriorated to the point where they cannot have access to prime loans and other sources of funding. And what they're saying is that since this is not a loan, we don't care about your credit score. Yes, you've got the United States government paying you off, so what are you going to worry about? And you've got insurance covering you as well. So I think that you're dealing with a community which has difficulties because of their credit scores, and they're looking for options. There are a number of things. If you're dealing with credit cards, for example, working with the credit card companies or dealing with a nonprofit
Credit counseling
credit
organization.
counselor
Right.
to help you work out a plan to be able to pay off is certainly better. As I said beforehand, you do have this guaranteed stream of income, which, although you don't want to lose control of it, you can still use it as a collateral as part of a good plan in order to pay down your debts, in order to be able to secure funding against it, but while maintaining control of the funding and not turning it over to someone else. And as I said, the final area, at least in the military, is that the JAG Corps was very upset because there are various programs set up within the military with relief funds, naval relief, Air Force relief, Army relief, to be able to work with their veterans to help them in distress. I think the thing that is so disturbing to me in the military area is that these thieves are stealing what are essentially tax dollars that are being paid on pensions, stealing them from veterans who've served their country, and then expect us to be able to take care of those veterans afterwards, because of course we're not going to abandon them when they don't have the ability to take care of their own needs. So where is, there's just no justice in there whatsoever. Everyone is being victimized, and these thieves are ripping us all off at the same time.
Madam Chair, I think Ms. Wolf was going to answer for me too, and I know I'm over time, but is that okay? Ms. Wolf, were you going to weigh in?
I'll keep this very brief. Not necessarily an alternative, but I do want to thank Dr. and Mrs. Croup for coming forward, because as a securities regulator, a lot of times we don't hear about these scams until someone's brave enough to pick up the phone and call us, because we're not on the front lines every day. And so one of the most important things is that if you are in doubt or you hear about a new company, especially these companies that are very good at tricking you and making you think they're one entity, but they're really another, call your local state agency, and whether it's the Attorney General's office or the Securities Department, a lot of times you don't know which agency would regulate what. They're very good about working together and referring cases. So if ever you have a question, call your state regulator and ask and see if they are regulated or if they've had complaints on this company. And that way you at least can know going forward, hopefully know what you're getting into.